Welcome to Primetime, everybody. I'm your host, Turner Chambliss, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Chad and Carrie. How's it going, guys?
Going great.
Yeah, so we have been gone for a few weeks. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, but we are back, and today we are talking about the new movie Longlegs, directed by Osgood Perkins, written by Osgood Perkins, starring Micah Monroe, Blair Underwood, Alicia Witt, and Nicolas Cage. I am so excited to talk about this. So, guys, let's open up with our non-spoiler thoughts on Longlegs.
Yep. We'll kick it down to me. I'll give a quick little synopsis. New agent Lee Harker is tasked to find a serial killer. That's kind of it, to be honest. If you say any more, it gives stuff away, and we're not in spoiler territory yet. So there it is.
So, yes, let's give our non-spoiler thoughts on this movie. Carrie, do you want to start with your non-spoiler thoughts?
Yeah, my non-spoiler thoughts. I think if you're familiar with the Osgood Perkins work, this is a little more straightforward than some of his other work, but at the same time not, once you actually get into it. If you're not familiar with his work, things do tend to be a little bit vague. There's not like it's not really a straightforward movie. That said, I found it absolutely terrifying. And I enjoyed it. It left me a little like dissatisfied, but that's kind of me and my personal preferences with horror movies. I can say for sure it terrified the crap out of me. Like we saw it last night, the night before we record this episode, and I woke up in the middle of the night and was just like terrified. This is one I think it's not quite as in-your-face scary in the theaters, but I mean, there are definitely jump scares. There are definitely scary parts in the theater, but this is definitely one that you're thinking about after you leave the theater, and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, exactly. Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I'll second that. What Carrie said is it's definitely a movie that sticks with you. There's a lot like in there to kind of sift through. I mean, I have in my background, a lot of other movies that came before it that are the kind of, procedural, like crime, horror, thrillers. Movies like The Silence of the Lambs, Prisoner, Zodiac, and Seven are the ones that I have behind me. This is kind of in that same vein, and I think that's what Osgood was going for. But it also has like its own personality, to where it feels like it definitely has like its own vibe. It has that I don't want to say much more, but that Nick Cage energy. I really loved him in it. I really loved Micah in it, so I feel like, the acting in it is pretty incredible. I like Osgood's direction, to where it really felt like, shots were lingering, and, you're always kind of wondering what's going to happen, even if you've already seen it. Because I've seen it twice now, and both times it was basically like, what's going to happen kind of a deal. Like they just get that in the tone for the movie, and it has a very good like tone of dread. And so I think that's why Carrie said she felt it long after the movie was over, is because I had a very similar experience, during the movie and after. I kept like thinking about things that I was worried about when I was in the movie, and it's just like it just like causes like anxiety, I think, which, it's like a psychological horror movie. So I think it's done extremely well in its, cinematography and everything. It's like it really feels like Osgood and his team put a lot of care and thought into it. And excuse me. And the story, I think, is actually really, really good. It kind of leaves you guessing, and there's just a lot I'd probably bring up more in the spoilers. But I do think this movie is pretty incredible. I think it is my favorite horror movie of the year so far. and I'd probably put it up in like my top 10 of the year as well. Because I do think it is that effective, and it's just so unique, despite being something that feels like other movies we've seen before. I think it's just another really great entry into that subgenre of horror. And yeah, can't wait to own it on Blu-ray. Hunter.
Yeah, so this is my favorite horror movie of the year. I absolutely love it. I've only seen it once. I want to go back and rewatch it. It's all about atmosphere and tone for me. This movie has that, as you guys said, Silence of the Lambs, Seven, that kind of dark, gritty, kind of detective cat and mouse element to it that I love. But what I love is that they give us Nicolas Cage, and he is full Cage, and I love it, but in small doses. Because I think if we were with him the entire movie, the way I thought we were going to be, that could get exhausting. But I think using him sparingly not only makes it effective when he's on screen, but it makes it scarier because you don't know when he's going to show up. Micah Monroe is amazing in this movie. Blair Underwood is incredible in this movie. I think he gives a hell of a supporting performance. Osgood does a really good job of holding on to shots, as Chad said, but also you wanting to look in the background and see some stuff that you may have not noticed on the first rewatch. That, is somebody behind there in the dark, or is there somebody behind this wall that you can't see? So it makes really good for rewatching a movie to be like, all right, I noticed this. Now I'm gonna go back and rewatch some other stuff just to see if I can notice any other Easter eggs. I love the kind of the 90s aesthetic that it has. That kind of it's set in the 90s, but it has like this 70s like made on film grind to it that I really, really love. So this is one of my favorite films of the year.
Yeah, totally. Perfect. So now we can get into the spoiler stuff, right? And actually dive a little bit deeper into the film. So yeah, if you haven't seen Longlegs, I don't think we gave too much away. So maybe pause this, go watch Longlegs, and then come back and watch the spoilers.
All right, so let's open up with the opening scene, which I think is so freaking terrifying. It opens up on this kind of farmhouse, I would say.
Yeah.
And we see a young
Lee
what's her
Harker.
character's name? Yeah, Lee and her mom. And we see, of course, Nicolas Cage's Longlegs.
Oh, we don't see her mom in that scene.
Oh, I thought we did. No, that's later on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah. But we only see Lee. Well, first we see the car pull up. We don't really know what's going on with the car, who's in the car. I like the framing of the shots to kind of give you this vibe about a stranger pulling up, and it's probably no good. I mean, it's a horror movie, and then you don't really see anyone get out. You don't really see anything with the car. You just kind of see it from like the outside perspective. Then the inside perspective, you see Lee putting on her clothes, and then she comes like winter clothes. She comes out because it's winter, and then she's kind of looking around just to see if anyone has come out of the car. And then I love like the buildup of the music, and then the cut shots to like different sides of where Lee is, and then it finally cuts to like one side of Lee, and then there we see Longlegs on that side.
Yeah, his dialogue of like it's somebody's birthday. Oh, it's so creepy.
Yeah. This opening scene and what happens with Longlegs when it shows up, like, looks like I won my long legs today. The way he's talking, just the way he looks, just the way the frame cuts off the top part of his face, it just makes it so creepy. You're looking at it from like a child's perspective. And then, the dialogue is really creepy. And then he bends down and cut. And then I love how it's all, shaded in red. And then we get some really great T-Rex music, which is very important to the character of Longlegs.
Yep. Carrie, thoughts on this opening scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly the most terrifying scene of the movie. And yeah, it just sets up, I think, the whole movie so well. Like immediately, you are just in it and you're terrified. And I think one thing this movie does really well is that feeling of dread that is set up in this first scene. I mean, it really carries through to the entire movie. There's not really much relief in this movie that you get.
Yeah, no, you're 100% on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about this scene that we haven't really mentioned that I love is I love the aspect ratio, because you get it to where it's just a square. And I don't know the last time, because I know like a 4:3 like aspect ratio, like the Lighthouse is shot in that, Twin Peaks is shot in that. More on Twin Peaks later, and whatnot. But this just feels like a square. And then a little bit, like a couple scenes later, we see Lee doing like a FBI test, and that is in a little square as well on the projector. And so I like that kind of framing device. And then we get to see certain other scenes in that square. And then as soon as that scene is over, the music is playing, it starts to slowly expand to full frame widescreen, full screen. And I just love that. I love when people play around with aspect ratios like that. It just seems so expert level.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's a really great framing rate to be like, the way I saw it, I was like, okay, the box could represent like Lee's perspective being so small because she is so focused on catching Longlegs that she doesn't see the outside perspective, which is, the spoiler at the end of the movie, which is it expands into more than just Longlegs. So she's focused on one guy, and it takes something happening to realize that it's going to expand further.
Yeah, because like we do see like a very narrow focus of her, because like Lee's character is so, throughout most of the movie, is so like focused on like one thing, like a kind of a limited focus on catching this one guy, that she's not able to see everything that is around her as well. So I think that's pretty dead on, actually, Hunter. That's a good thing. I also like kind of like the square could like represent like remembering the past kind of a deal, and stuff like that. So yeah, and I just love the cinematography and the way everything is shot in this movie anyways. So I feel like that aspect ratio and them playing with that kind of shows you they know exactly what they're doing and they're ready to take you on a ride. So, and Carrie said that already, and I just think that's so true. So, I guess now we can move on to just talking about the characters in general. There's not many here, but I guess we could talk. Would you want to start with Lee Harker, Micah Monroe?
Yeah.
I think that she is absolutely incredible in this. I know her from like It Follows, and I think another movie. No, The Guest. So I know her from a couple movies. But like in this one, I just loved like her line delivery. I loved her like focus, but like you think that like maybe her character for the whole movie is just going to be so one note in a way, because she is like this focused detective that's just like the way she delivers her lines are so kind of like flat. And yet a little bit later on we get to see some sort of release from her, and then she changes, and I think that was a really cool thing.
Yeah, so there's a theorized that she is a possible clairvoyance.
Yes.
Which does open up to this not being exactly like Silence of the Lambs, but it's like Silence of the Lambs with like a supernatural element.
Oh, there's 100% supernatural stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, there's also, and we'll get to more like themes and stuff a little bit later, but it kind of follows in a tradition of a lot of movies this year, because it's a religious horror movie. Which you have Immaculate, you have The First Omen, so I think that's really cool too, is that we're getting a lot more of those, and I think that it's used well in this movie as well.
I absolutely love her in this movie. I think she is a standout.
Yeah. It's hard to say that there's a standout in this movie because I think everyone's just firing in all cylinders and just crushing it. But yeah, she is incredible. I agree.
Speaking of characters, can we talk about her mom, played by Alicia Witt?
Well, can I want to get Carrie's
okay.
To talk about that's okay. I want to get Carrie to talk about Lee Harker.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I think I don't know just how like Micah Monroe does a fantastic job, but like how like you called it one note Chad, like how kind of flat she is and so standoffish, like so awkwardly standoffish, and something's not right with her. Like no human being really behaves this way. So I'm glad that does like come to a resolution in the movie. I mean, I think you can pick up pretty quickly. I mean, it's not obvious, but you can pick up pretty quickly that she is probably the girl from the beginning. And that something happened to her to make her, or something. I was kind of in the movie theater kind of theorizing like, well, could she be Longlegs' accomplice or something? Like, so is she like very directly involved because she's so it's so flat, like kind of unfeeling, but also like she seems scared of like she's scared to get close to her boss's family or anything like that. It seems like so.
Yeah, but it's in like a way that it's not like a bad performance one note. It's like she's working so hard to stay in this one zone instead of emoting because she's not, there's something suppressing her from emoting. Which also kind of gives her certain abilities and things like that, and to be able to know things that people go, how the hell do you know that? So
I love the moment.
Oh, go ahead.
I love the moment where she meets Blair Underwood's family, and it cuts to her and her daughter just sitting in a room, and there's absolute quiet, and you're like, oh, this is awkward. Like, when are they gonna speak? And then it just prolongs the silence. This movie is darkly funny too, in a way.
Oh, there's a lot of comedy in this, and then we can get into that later when we talk about the themes. But Hunter, I believe, wants to talk about a certain actress in the movie.
Yeah, so Alicia Witt, if you guys don't know who that is, she was the lead in one of my favorite 90s slashers, Urban Legend. She was the main character in that movie. She plays Lee Harker's mom. She is amazing in this movie. I think the way that she has to kind of balance out this kind of, like Lee, this kind of weird standoffish role or a character, but also play a loving mother, and with the twist at the end, we know what happens. So there's a lot that relies on her character. I think she does an amazing job with this role.
Yeah, I love her in this movie as well. And I also want to add, she's not just an urban legend. She goes all the way back to David Lynch's Dune. She's in that.
Oh, wow.
She's also in the original Twin Peaks. I think she's in one episode.
Okay.
But that also kind of goes to where I was going to bring up some Twin Peaks a little bit later when we talk about like themes and references and things. But I think it's really cool that they added her for a lot of these different reasons because she's so, well known in the horror sphere with, Twin Peaks and Urban Legend and stuff. But she does an incredible job. I love how through her performance, you always know that there's something off about her. You know that there's something she might be hiding. But I love like all of her line delivery. She's also kind of like muted in a way, but like kind of different from her daughter, where it just kind of looks like she's always concealing something, um, and she just feels very creepy. And when we get to the end of the movie, we know she's very creepy. Like the way she moves and the way she talks and the way she just like stares at people and stuff. It's just like it really gets to me. And I think she did an incredible job here. Carrie.
Yeah, I agree. And her character is like pretty surprising. Again, it's one where you kind of know something's not right with her the whole movie, but you don't exactly know how. So, and that's like a big thing I really, really did like about this movie is that some things were kind of, it's obvious that like things aren't right and the characters are acted so well that you can tell something's going to happen, like with related to their past later on, but you cannot figure out what until it's really revealed to you. And yeah, her acting just like is a great demonstration of that, just like how off she seems in the scenes earlier in the movie where she's the mother of the adult Lee, versus I really like even the scene, it's very brief, but the scene where Longlegs first comes to their house and we see that whole scene and she very much seems like a normal mother, and then she like gets twisted.
I actually just now thought about this. It is interesting how the people who come into contact with Longlegs in this film end up becoming different in a way. And our main characters, when we find out, pretty much not the big twist, but we find out that the girl and the mother were Lee and her mother when Lee was a kid. As they grow older, they start acting weird like Longlegs, like not psychotic, but just kind of slightly off in a way. Like that experience kind of twisted their mind in a way where it's like they don't act like everybody else. Like they act kind of slightly off. That way, when we do have the scene with Lee and Longlegs, this whole entire room just feels completely like a powder keg that's about to explode. You have this kind of weird off feeling because you have both of them in the same room again.
Yeah, we'll definitely cover that scene soon. But Carrie, did you want to talk about Blair Underwood's character real quick?
Yeah, he gives a really great performance here of like an FBI agent, and he's a boss, and he's really just trying to solve this case. But he's got a family at home. He's trying to, I think, figure out how Lee Harker is maybe, I think at first how she can maybe help them, and then how she was maybe involved. And then at the very end, of course, his character is under the influence of the devil, or if Longlegs is dead at that point, but of the devil or whatever you want to call it. And you can tell he has this like, both he and the actress who plays his wife, they're like, it's like they're trying to put on this performance of like everything's normal, but like in their head they like know it's not, and it's really crazy. They give very great performances, I think, in that scene in particular.
Yeah, we get a lot of those kind of under the influence acting from some like other actors that play other families who have died and things like that, but this one we actually get to see them act it out, which is so creepy the way they behave. And it's like they don't act like how normal people would because they're under the influence. But yeah, very quickly on my part, Blair Underwood is really good in the movie, but he's playing a character that is kind of like the typical kind of character that you would see in these movies, that is the boss that's just trying to figure stuff out. And he's not the one that like knows how to really figure it out like she does, but he also has an important role where he's the normal character, where she's the more like flat one, where she's got to stay in this zone. Like he's the one trying to figure out
her up.
Ace, but also figure her out as well, and just trying to, how do you know this? All right, let's go look at these bodies or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I think he does amazing in this movie. One thing I do like is that his character is never doubting Lee Harker, which I love. Like in some movies, it could be like, "Oh, I don't believe you. There's something off with you. We don't have any, full concrete evidence." Whatever she comes up with, he's at least willing to work with her to kind of solve it together. And it doesn't seem like he's trying to like strong arm her into, you know, make her think she's crazy or anything like that. Like it's really feels like a partnership between them two. And then when that ending happens, it is even more heartbreaking because you realize, oh, like this influence can get to even, the the nice guys or whatever you want to say. Like it can affect just anybody. It's not just one particular type of person who gets influenced by it. It's anybody. So it's open for any interpretation. I think he does a fantastic job. As I said, one of the probably the can't speak today. One of the best supporting performances I've seen this year.
Yeah, definitely. So now I don't think there's many. I mean, there's some side characters we haven't really talked about.
Oh, wait. There is one I want to bring up. The character is Carrie Ann Camera, played by Kieran Shipka.
Kieran Shipka. Oh my God, she's
Yes.
actually really incredible in this, and I almost forgot to bring her up. So thank you very much, Hunter, because she's
So
like
good.
she's on a roll, and I'm gonna look up in a second the few things that she's been in.
Totally Killer was awesome.
Yeah, her kind of comeback from like after being away from Sabrina for a while to Totally Killer was really cool. But like I didn't know she was in this when I watched this for the first time. And then when I saw her, she just gave like such a creepy performance as someone who's been totally taken over by this thing and is,
She has a really creepy line where she's talking to Lee Harker and she's like, if he would have told me to come over there and kill you, I would do it.
Yeah, she's like,
and you're like, oh.
Yeah, she's got this like really cool like Southern accent. She's just like, or like old timey kind of accent where she's like,
Yes.
if he tells me to do it, I sure would be as happy as Peaches to do it, to come right over there and kill you with my bare hands. I would
sound like Bobby Lynn from X.
Yeah, little. Yeah, she's incredible in it, and yeah, Carrie.
Yeah, she's really fantastic in it, and her character is just so creepy. And yeah, it's interesting to kind of draw the I don't know if it's the parallels between her character and kind of and Lee Harker. It's because they're
the same type of character, yeah.
Yeah, they're both kind of the girls who are targeted, and like their different paths, I guess.
Yeah. So it's cool to see, not cool, but interesting to see a character who doesn't rise above like Lee gets to, who ends up, a little bit more tragic, even though Lee's life is also kind of tragic. But yeah, Kiernan Shipka, like we said, she was in Totally Killer, Longlegs. She's also in Twisters. And she's in the new Christmas movie Red One that's coming out. So she's
busy year for her.
She's blowing up in 2024. That's all I'll say. But now we get to talk about the character, like the big character, the producer of the movie.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, that's wild.
And the big character in the movie, Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage, the great Nicolas Cage, who, if you love movies and just craziness in movies, he's the man. And this character, I love how Carrie said that they show him a little bit in the trailers, but I don't think really get a vibe for what his character is until you're deep into the movie and you already are super unsettled. And I think that's very important because you have the little brief stint with him in the very beginning, and then you don't have him for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when they finally get to his character, he starts to do some very Nick Cage stuff. But I think, because at first I was like, is this going to take me out of the movie with Nick Cage doing the mommy?
I love that. That scene was so creepy.
I was like, he's being Nick Cage now. But then I was like, but the movie has done such a great job of establishing like that tone of dread that it's creepy now. Even though it is darkly funny, like Hunter brought up, it's still very creepy, and you're just like, no, he is this character. That's not Nick Cage. That's Longlegs. And it is funny because I was watching shout out to Red Letter Media. I was watching their show, and they called the store that he goes into Redneck Radio Shack.
It is, yeah.
And and everything that happens with this character after that, just the way he stands, like there's a whole thing with dolls in this movie to where he kind of like has made himself look like a doll. That pans from a doll's face to his face when he's just like on the side of the road.
The cuckoo thing he does with his hands.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, and the way he stands like over the doll this one time, and the way he speaks with the Holy Hawker, happy birthday.
It's so creepy.
It's like this has to be one of the best, just like villain, serial killer, crazy person performances like of all time. I mean, it might be a little too quick to say that, but it really got me, and I really loved him in this movie. And the coolest thing is it kind of goes to a very Bill Skarsgård Pennywise place, because Hunter already mentioned the scene when Lee Harker sees him for the first time, like not on video, but in person. Apparently, that was the first time she had ever met Nicolas Cage.
Oh no!
They kept her from him, so it was kind of a very like awesome. Chapter 2 Pennywise kind of a thing. And then so like that scene is like when they first met or whatever. That's what she said on a news show, talk show. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, and Barry, you guys can now talk about Longlegs.
Yeah, I mean, he's so creepy. I think the most effective parts of this movie are the more beginning parts where we just see so little of him. And for a good portion of the movie, I would say pretty much actually until he gets captured by the FBI. Like every shot he's in, his face is somewhat obscured for the most part. I would say maybe there's like one part in the Redneck Radio Shack where you do see his whole face, I think. I think even then though he's kind of going like this or something.
Yeah, he has hands like that, so you can't really see his forehead.
Yeah, you really don't see his whole face until they arrest him, and then he's kind of on the video screen and then talking to Lee Harker. I thought that was just incredibly effective. And I feel like those are the scenes that stay with me the most. The scenes where his face is just like partially obscured and where he's just like hiding through the shadows, like especially in the opening scene where you kind of see him go behind the building in the background. And then in the scene at Lee Harker's house where he breaks in and leaves the letter and you just kind of see him walking through the house. Like, I thought those were just super effective, like it kind of representing like evil could be any form. And just generally, I think just especially his voice, like you said, Chad, and just the way he acts in this movie, it is just so terrifying.
Oh yeah, I want to like learn his dialogue and like do a thing. Because I'll just like, late at night, Carrie's trying to sleep. Happy birthday, Carrie. But yeah, you mentioned the scene at Lee's house, and the first time I was like, "Yep, totally." Second time, I was wondering, was that Longlegs or could that have been her mother?
That's a good question,
because they don't really show anyone they show like a presence in the dark at one point with the music, but yeah, I always kind of wondered that, and I don't know if there's any way to know.
Yeah,
I think that's again up to interpretation.
It's like Scream. It's like which one was
Which
that?
Ghostface is the guy killing Casey Becker?
Right. Yeah, Hunter. Longlegs. Did you mention?
Oh, Nicolas Cage, man, absolutely kills it in this movie. We are getting so much of this Nicolas Cage, overperforming in horror movies, and I love it. I think he brings that Mandy style of just going crazy, but instead of being kind of the hero in Mandy, he now turns that in being the villain. I think it works even better. He's like that Buffalo Bill character. We don't get to see a lot of him, but when we do get to see him, he stays with you in this movie. Again, the scene where he meets Lee for the first time, or I guess now that they're older for the first time in the police room, completely creepy. The ending where he like bashes his head into the table. You just see how crazy he is. He's like bleeding and he's like happy birthday and he's just like keeps hitting his head against the table and you're just, this guy is insane. He gives a stellar performance in this movie.
Yeah, he commits for sure. Hunter brought up Mandy, and I kind of wanted to maybe do a brief stint where anybody can talk about like any like references to other things that they noticed, because like you mentioned Mandy, not just Nick Cage being in the movie and committing so hard, but I mean also kind of like a revenge tale a little bit, but like no, it's not really, is it? But I don't know. But there is a shot towards the end when she's heading to the final confrontation, and you see the cameras like over in like one side of the car looking at Lee, and they use that same kind of shot in Mandy. I think so. It really gave me Mandy vibes there. And then, of course, I brought up Twin Peaks a lot. Just, of course, Alicia Witt, but then also the little balls that are in the dolls' heads are these little things that contain some sort of like supernatural demonic energy or smoke or something like that. And there's similar things that happen in Twin Peaks, is all I'll say. So it has a lot of that kind of imagery, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I also love how in this movie you see Longlegs is driving after he out of the Redneck Radio Shack, which I'm gonna keep calling it that because that's what it is at this point. But and he's like screaming in the car. I love how they used that, but they used it with Lee driving to meet Longlegs. She's like screaming in the car, like hitting the wheel. She's so frustrated. I like how they kind of again show the parallel between the hero and the villain of the movie.
Yeah. No, that's dead on. Okay. So is there any like story beats that we want to bring up, twists, or?
I love how we meet this woman detective. I don't quite know her name, but she starts becoming a friend with Lee. And this is kind of darkly, like it's dark, but there's kind of a humor to it as well, where like Lee goes to her mother's house to confront her, to bring her in. All of a sudden, she just comes out and her mom just shoots her in the head. And you're like, what the fuck happened there? Like, it takes you completely like it turns it 180 because you're like, oh, there's something up with her mom, and then at that moment it just full force, you know what's going on now.
Yeah, and that scene actually is so creepy where her mom is creeping up on her in the car. That was terrifying.
I remember Carrie was like, "Uh-oh." They were like, "Oh." Like, as soon as she started moving. That was Michelle Choi Lee as Agent Browning that Hunter brought up. Yeah, there's a lot of like kind of like smaller parts, like the girl at Redneck Radio Shack. That creepy guy's back. And then the line that the Agent Browning said, like where she's like, well, we know one thing. We know he's definitely a Satanist. He definitely worships Satan. That's for sure. And then she's like, but this is America. There's nothing we can do about
that. By the way, I wonder if the last name Browning is a reference to Todd Browning.
Probably. Yeah.
Which, knowing, again, Osgood Perkins loves his classic horror. So does Nicolas Cage. I would not be surprised if I learned that they got Browning, the last name Browning, from Todd Browning.
Yep, 100%. I'm definitely sure that's what happened. Yeah, so I mean we get the dolls, we get like a lot of like, coding and stuff, like, hints like the kind of Zodiac like ness of Longlegs. The fact that he's like giving these letters to the police. And then of course we have like the supernatural tent with the dolls, and then we get the full story, which I love how we get Alicia Witt explaining everything at the end. Like you don't always love like an explanation scene where it's like, and here's how I did it, kind of a thing. But
this does it really well though, because it at first it makes it sound like it's a bedtime story she's telling to her daughter, and you realize, oh, and it's cutting in with her, driving to different places, and that's where you really get the moment of, oh, she's an accomplice with Longlegs. And I love how it intercuts with that, and you at first you're like, oh, is this just her telling her daughter a bedtime story that maybe is like a scary story? And then as it dives deeper, you realize, oh no, she's telling her everything.
Yeah. I love how they use the cinematography, like we said, the aspect ratio, the way of her, the editing, the way of her like quietly telling her this story. I just love her voice as she does it, and she just seems so like matter of fact, like this is what I had to do so that Lee could live. And then you're like, well, like what kind of life is Lee living? Like everyone she knows and loves is dying, and stuff like that. But there you go.
I think the ending of this movie is insanely good, with her mom with the doll, and she's going over to what is his name, Detective Carter's house, Blair Underwood's character, and it's so great because it's set up like a normal birthday party. And then you come in and the doll's already been unwrapped, and you're like, oh no, like someone has already been infected by this doll right here. And then it's slowly like the mom, Blair Underwood's wife, you can tell something's kind of up with her. I don't know if she's fully possessed yet. I know he is, because there's a moment where he's like smiling, and then let's go cut the cake, and then they walk off, and you just hear screams from the kitchen.
Yeah, I mean,
so fucking creepy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure as soon as she gets to that house, or as soon as that doll's unwrapped, they're all in some sort of trance.
I wonder if the daughter has been
100%, because she's just sitting there like, and like nothing, like no one,
nothing affects her.
She doesn't react to anything. She's just there with her doll. And the line that you said, it's actually kind of funny. The first time I watched the movie, there was a laugh in the theater. Second time, no laugh. But there's a funny point where the mom is like, oh, I'm gonna go help him in the kitchen. I'll be right back. And then he goes, no, I'll be right back. You'll be in the kitchen. And that's a funny, but that's kind of a funny part, but it's very darkly funny. And I love how I love because it transitions between, like we've already talked about, where the Browning Agent Browning dies violently, and then you get the doll part, shooting the doll, and then you get like the presence released from Lee, and then that's how she starts to actually emote and have this sense of urgency that she hadn't really had uh, much of in the movie before or at all, and then we go to have this final confrontation, and that whole confrontation is insanely tense. Carrie, any thoughts on the ending?
Yeah, the ending is I read an interview with Osgood Perkins where he said they were very heavily influenced by Seven, and it is meant to be a reference to Seven. It's not a happy ending. It's kind of designed to leave you with kind of a what the fuck, like, even though the main villain is gone, he still is leaving his impact.
Just like Jigsaw.
I also wonder if there's a kind of a Psycho reference in this movie as well, because you go into this movie expecting Nicolas Cage to be the main villain all the way through, and they kind of kill him off halfway through the movie. I wonder if that was a reference to, like, you think Jamie Lee is going to be, or Janet Leigh is going to be the hero of the movie, and then she gets killed off 45 to an hour into the movie.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit to that where you don't really expect that to happen, but the movie does kind of keep you guessing and things like that. So,
which would be a cool callback to, considering Osgood Perkins is the son of Anthony Perkins.
Yeah.
So that's a little nod to his father as well.
Yeah, it's definitely possible that's what he was going for. Yeah. So I mean,
I have a question for you guys. Actually,
sure.
What do you think about that ending? Like, not the complete ending, but her mom being kind of the full antagonist at the end, instead of someone like a Nicolas Cage, where you get like a Manhunt, like a Silence of the Lambs, where it is, Clarice Starling versus Buffalo Bill. We didn't really get that. Nicolas Cage's Longlegs character kind of takes himself out, and then it's her versus her mother at the end.
Well, I mean, it's really the big antagonist is kind of like Satan, evil, darkness, the devil, this evil presence that's controlling everything. It's very hereditary. And that there's this like doom, like nihilistic, like doom and gloom kind of mentality where this thing's gonna win. But you do have forces out there like Lee that can battle it, and we don't get to see Lee necessarily win, but kind of, we're still spoiler. She kills her mom in this confrontation, and then she's trying to shoot the doll to end it, and then she says that like bad things will happen and you'll go to hell, or well, I guess that's a good thing in there. Like you will go to hell. Wait, do they want to go to hell? I can't remember.
No, but her mom thinks her mom is doing all of this so that she and Lee, or at least so Lee won't
go to hell.
Go to hell.
Oh,
it's like it's a cult. It's like Heaven's Gate or whatever, where they do fucked up shit for the possibility of not going to hell.
But then I guess the big question is, if you're worshiping Satan, you will also go to hell, but you won't be hurt in hell. I guess.
Yeah.
I think her mom thinks she's
protecting her daughter.
Yeah, her mom knows she's made to deal with the devil, and that's not really going to protect her or anything.
Yeah, and I guess we get the kind of duality where she's doing it for like a noble reason, but then Longlegs was doing it for, I don't know, I guess just the love.
He's just crazy.
The game, just the love of the game, and whatnot. And it's
I was not expecting this movie to have a supernatural element to it. Not saying I hate it, but I really enjoyed that they took what could have been just a really good Silence of the Lambs type movie, and you have that, but it makes it its own movie, adding these kind of supernatural elements sprinkled into the movie.
Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be supernatural until we got to the end, and then the doll's head started to do stuff like that, and then I was like, oh, okay, so they are diving into this. And then at first I was a little disappointed, and then I was like, oh no, that's actually fine. I think it's kind of a really cool like horror, like religious horror demon movie now, kind of like Hereditary. So, but Carrie, I think she said she called it earlier than that.
Well, as soon as they were like, the FBI is accepting that she's kind of psychic, I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like some supernatural stuff, because like,
but I just thought that was more like not them saying like she's literally like a Sean Spencer kind of psychic, but like she has good hunches. So
like an FBI like kind of like Sean Spencer.
Yeah, because like nothing at that point had actually happened that showed us anything like out of the like metaphysical happening, basically. So it just wasn't, But I definitely see your point where you can pick up on things like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to rewatch this movie with the now knowing the ending and now knowing what he was going for, and look for those supernatural elements like early on in the movie. See if I can notice any of them.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a good rewatch. I'll give you that. And the tone and everything still works. You'll still be at a state of unease the entire time. And yeah, I mean, I guess just the big themes are just, kind of like going all the way back to Halloween, like, evil's everywhere. Some people just want to watch the world burn. I guess that's the Dark Knight.
That was a Joker.
And then some people they want to protect their own, and they just use any means necessary. And sometimes the means they believe are necessary end up hurting the people they love. So, and taking them away from them and stuff like that. So,
yep.
So yeah.
I mean, I can't think of anything else that we haven't talked about.
Well, I will just add, I love Longlegs' taste in music, because I love like T-Rex. He's got like a metal kind of tinge to him, but like not a, like you said, takes place in the 90s, but he's definitely like a 70s and 80s style music person. So he doesn't do like new metal, but he goes probably all the way back to like, listen to T-Rex and Led Zeppelin and all these people. So, Black Sabbath and stuff like that. He totally listens to Black Sabbath.
Oh, 100%.
Let's be real. But
he's an Aussie fan.
So, like Hunter said, there's really not much else to bring up. So if there's any last thoughts, we could go ahead and wrap this one up, and just say that I love Longlegs. Hunter.
Oh, I absolutely love Longlegs. It's one of my favorites of the year.
And Carrie needs to watch it again. No, I'm just kidding. Carrie is mixed on it.
Yeah, I am a little bit more mixed. I really liked it, but I didn't like it quite as much as you guys did. And I would say I actually preferred the First Omen that came out this year.
That's fair.
But this one was, I think, long-term scarier than like the First Omen is, it's scary when you watch it a little bit maybe, but not like, you're not really thinking about it afterwards. I mean, this one I'm still thinking about and still trying to figure out the movie, which is really cool, but also just not always I mean, it's really good. I don't know.
Yeah. There's certain movies where you do want more answers, and that could take away from your enjoyment of the movie.
Yeah.
That's just shoving answers at people. I mean, we do get a lot of answers, but just not like just handing everything to a viewer. I think it's just then just make it less interesting.
Yeah,
Because
so
then you're
there
like,
has to be a balance of like you can't tell us nothing, but you can't give us everything either. I think this movie has a good balance, but I think it would have been better if it was maybe 10 minutes longer, and we
okay,
got a little bit more background information on her mother and the deal she made with Longlegs. It just kind of fleshed out her character a little bit more.
like a solid 2-hour movie
Yeah,
instead of 100 minutes or whatever.
yeah.
But Carrie mentioned First Omen. I think what we do soon is we maybe do Carrie and I will watch Immaculate, and we'll do a double dip of First Omen and Immaculate, since they're very similar.
That's a really fun double feature.
Yeah, I actually really want to rewatch the First Omen as well. So, that's a great episode back. We talked about Longlegs. I had a great time doing it. A very interesting movie, and if we can get some more horror movies that are like, I think, this good, this year and the years to come, I think we'll be in a good place.
The 2020 so far has been a great decade for horror.
Yeah.
2022 by itself had so many classics. I think this year has been amazing as well. 2023 was kind of a mixed year, but we still had Scream 6. We had a really decent lineup, especially in the kind of midsummer to December time. So I think this decade has been incredible for horror so far.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right. Well, definitely, if you like this video, go ahead and check out some other videos on this channel. We're trying to upload a lot of classics that we recorded on a different channel that we're trying to now drop here. But then we're also trying to do new stuff, especially since Hunter's back. We can go ahead and record more. I want to get more into bracket. We're still working on our decades bracket series.
We got Buffy coming up.
We're talking more about Buffy the Vampire Slayer that Carrie and I adore, and Hunter is now almost done, and he loves it as well. And we'll just keep on trying to do more reviews as we can see them. We can't see them always as soon as they're released, but we get to them when we get to them. Hunter, do you want to go ahead and close it out?
Yeah, guys, if you did enjoy this, please hit that like button, subscribe to Welcome to Primetime, and remember, stay scared.